It is the Doomsday Podcast, and Ed Werder, Matt Mosley. We had a studio audience here in our beautiful suite high above AT&T Stadium.
Fortunately, one of those guys was a bartender.
I don't know what you're talking about, but well, we kind of ushered them on out. But good to have them. Good to have them, and appreciate the Nation family as always, Jim and Sally Nation, for providing our studio. And it was another tough home loss for the Cowboys. Ed, at least this one was close and had some major drama at the end. A lot of the home losses have been lopsided, so there's progress there. But they fall to what, one and
5 at home.
1 and 5 at home now. And Ed, let's start
1 and 6.
Let's start. Yeah,
1 and 6 at home.
1 and 6. Okay, yeah. But let's start with what everybody's thinking about and talking about tonight. And that's and then we'll also have Ed and I were down there for Jerry. Ed then ran to get McCarthy. I stayed with Jerry. I actually got a little alone time with Jerry, and he had a lot to say about the block punt and the Cowboys' decision to do that. Even if they don't fire Mike McCarthy, after talking to Jerry tonight, Ed, I think our time with Bones Fossil could be coming to an end.
It's been an adventure on special teams. I mean, they've had punts blocked. They've had fake punts fail. They've had field goals blocked. They've had kickoff return for a touchdown, punt return for a touchdown. So they've been at both ends of the spectrum. But on special teams, you're only supposed to do good things. And what happened tonight was something that happened over 30 years ago, and a lesson with Leon Lett that no Cowboys player should ever commit again. And yet we saw it happen again tonight in a very similar way with Amani Arwarye, who Nick Vigil blocked the punt. They didn't even have a punt block on, Mike McCarthy said. They were setting up a return. But the B gap came open. Vigil went through, blocked the kick, deflected the kick. It bounced past the line of scrimmage. Immediately, if you look, Marist Leafau, the rookie linebacker, is going, making this motion and yelling, stay away from it, don't touch it. The players.
Bones was doing that over there.
John Fossil tells these players not to do that. Now, did Arwarye not get the message because he just came off an injury and was restored to the active roster tonight, and he joined the team during the season, so he wasn't there for training camp.
Mm-hmm.
But we assume, and Mike McCarthy suggested that all the players knew what to do. He said Arwarye in this particular situation was being blocked by 2 defenders, viced he called it. And when he turned around, hearing the crowd, he just got confused and saw the ball right in front of him, and his instinct was to try to secure it.
Mm-hmm.
And he failed to do so, and then the Bengals recovered, not a first down, and when you know it, Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase to win the game with about a minute to go.
Which at one point, Ed, because you can either have a slow death there where you're calling your timeouts and trying to preserve, and then they hit the field goal, or you can have a fast death. And so they chose the fast death, and the Cowboys are uniquely qualified to give up touchdowns in those scenarios. But I thought, well, maybe that'll help them. And then with a minute left, that was when they really didn't accomplish much of anything, like a sack, a run. They were having to burn timeouts. And then, of course, with about 19 seconds left is when that ended. He overshoots CeeDee Lamb. And Ed, again, we have so much to talk about, but again, let's stay with this play. You'll hear from Jerry. Jerry's point was this, and it kind of goes along, Ed, I think where you were headed right there. Jerry's point is it's a tie game. And Jerry also was very quick to say we've had special teams gaffes throughout the year, all these fake punts that they do. And Jerry said, we just wanted the ball back there. It's 20-20. You just want them to kick and get the ball back. And so his whole argument.
Got Brandon Aubrey, you got to across the midfield. You're kicking a field goal to win the game.
You're right. Great kicker. You don't have to move it that far. And your punt returner is great. You have one of the best punt returners in the game, one of the best kick returners. And so there's a lot to say. And again, at the time, Ed, you're thinking huge play, Vigil, block punt.
You can't blame him for blocking the punt.
No.
Yeah.
But I wondered I think Aurorier is obviously at fault, at huge fault here. Jerry's point was, I don't blame the kid. Jerry thought that blocking, and I don't think Jerry at the time he was talking to us knew that there wasn't a block punt called. I think in Jerry's mind, they went in there with the purpose of trying to block the punt. Yes.
And they didn't know how to handle the rest of it.
Yes. And so the Cowboys lose in dramatic fashion, and any hopes of, I mean, I guess, Ed, if they had found a way to win that thing and gotten it to 6-7, there would be faint hopes.
They had a 1% chance, according to ESPN analytics coming in, so it'll be less than that now. And we can go into this more on the other side of the music. But Mike McCarthy pretty much resigned himself to this being their last hope.
Yeah.
That they had to win this game to have any reasonable long shot chance of making the playoffs.
So now you get back to tanking. Okay. So the fans that want them to tank,
they don't have to tank.
This
naturally happens when you're not good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But they had won 2 straight. They had been upsetting. They were not tanking well. And so now they're back to tanking. And the one thing you can almost always bet on, unless the Giants come in here, they're going to lose at home. And I think the crazy thing, Ed, is they were close enough against a team that seemed, even at 4-8, superior to them, and especially on offense. You just knew this team had way more firepower than the Cowboys.
But they made them play the game the way the Cowboys wanted to play the game if they were going to win the game. And it was all decided on one play by a guy who wasn't ever supposed to touch the ball and didn't know what to do and shouldn't have touched the ball.
Correct. All right. Lots to talk about. It is the Doomsday Podcast. Mike Hamilton, please play the music. Ed loves the graphics. We've got good graphics here at Rogue Media Network. Okay, Ed, it is with great sadness that we deliver the news that the Cowboys are now 5-8, and there's no way forward for this team, and probably this head coach. Although, boy, I mean, Troy Aikman before the game on the flagship radio station 105.3 was sitting there saying, this guy's a great coach. He should be the coach, and of course, obviously, Troy has great credibility with everybody, but especially Jerry Jones. And so that was interesting to hear Troy come that strong on, hey, there's a lot that's happened this year, and this guy's an unbelievable coach, and I think he's going to be the coach moving forward.
Well, anytime Troy says something of that consequence, it's going to be a significant message. He's not looking to be wrong. He's generally not wrong, especially when it comes to Cowboys news of this magnitude and the decision that Jerry and Steven and the front office have to make when this season is over, on whether to bring back Mike McCarthy. All along the whole season, it seemed like Jerry had ruled out like using injuries as an excuse for a failed season. He said, a couple of weeks ago, hey, we were 3-6 with Dak. And they have had an incredible number of injuries, and that continued tonight with DeMarvion Overshawn suffering what appears to be a very significant knee injury. Micah Parsons was so upset about it in the locker room after the game, he was moved to tears. McCarthy said it doesn't look good. It looks to be a significant injury. It's the other knee. It's the right knee this time. It was the left knee in training camp last year, preseason, that he had a torn ACL and had to miss the whole season. But such a great playmaker and a second threat on the defense, versatile player. But as far as Mike McCarthy goes, I mean, when you look at it logically, I mean, Jerry didn't extend him after he won 12 games 3 years in a row. And he said the reason he didn't do it was Green Bay, the playoff loss, the lack of playoff success. He's 1-3 at the playoffs, and the only win was against an 8-9 Tampa Bay Bucs team. Okay, it was Tom Brady. It was Tom Brady's last game in the NFL. But it was an 8-9 team is the only team you've beaten in the postseason. And now he's going to extend him for who knows how long. What's the justification? He's not going to win a playoff game this year.
No.
By his own admission, basically, tonight after the game, he said, hey, we felt great about this game. We knew we had to play it a certain way, and we did. and it was right there for us. And I finally felt, with us getting Diggs and Bland back at the same time, that we finally had a complete team, even without Dak Prescott. Finally felt like we had a real team and we could go do something with this opportunity. And he said, but, we knew we'd lost 7 games and we knew we had to have this one. So that's the math. I mean, he basically said it's over for us. He wouldn't answer any questions. I asked him about whether this would, introduce the possibility of Trey Lance playing quarterback at the expense of Cooper Rush. He wouldn't answer that. But I just don't know how. I think Mike's a good coach. Like, I think he's done as good a job as could be done under the circumstances here. They did have some embarrassing blowout losses to teams that turned out to be not very good. New Orleans was not very good.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland was not very good. They beat Cleveland, but Cleveland was not very good. And so I don't know, but certainly it seems like the way Jerry and Steven have spoken recently has been sort of a trial balloon about how will the public react if we suggest Mike McCarthy might come back. And don't forget, Mike McCarthy, his contract's expiring, so that means he could leave of his own volition if he got a better opportunity somewhere else. I don't know if he will, but New Orleans has an opening. McCarthy's first play calling opportunity in the NFL was with New Orleans. They need an offensive coach, it would seem like. That's what McCarthy is. There's a history there. Mickey Loomis's son, the general manager's son, works in the Cowboys organization. He's going to know a lot about Mike McCarthy and how he's viewed internally. But it's strange that all of a sudden Jerry and Steven are talking about Mike McCarthy coming back. Now, there are only 2 coaches in the NFC right now who have won Super Bowls, and McCarthy's one of them. There are only 7 coaches in the whole NFL active now who have won Super Bowls. McCarthy's one of them. So it's not easy to win a Super Bowl. Just one. It's not easy. And he's done that.
I kind of think the Cowboys are just going to hire, if they hire another coach, whoever University of North Carolina doesn't hire. That's who they'll hire. It is the Doomsday Podcast. And 27, they turned off the scoreboard. That's nice. It's not quite as bright behind you, Ed. You're like a bright, shining light.
Yes, I illuminate all around
almost like a halo above you. Cowboys lose this one 27-20. Season's over, but they're going to play a few more games, and we will continue to show up, and we will continue to react. And this was a tough one because it happened on a special teams mistake. And again, this is something I think we've joked about how much McCarthy, Ed, likes Bones Fossil and how much fun he has with him and all that kind of stuff. But this year, I think he's been perplexed by some things, some strange decisions to go for it. And even when they've gone for it, some really ridiculous plays that they've run. They've tried to throw downfield a good one. They've asked their punter to do too much. That's bad. And then
2 failed fake punts.
And then 2 failed fake punts. And then this was a bad one. I'll tell you what we're going to do right now. I want to let Jerry speak for a second. And Ed, as you know, what kind of happens sometimes is Jerry, and you were with Jerry, and then you went to talk to Mike. And what will happen is Jerry says, "Okay, guys," and then a couple of us will follow Jerry. I was solo,
away from the cameras.
Yeah. And as I was following him, nobody else followed him. And so spent a little time alone with Jerry, and then we kind of ducked around a corner, and then 2 other reporters did finally kind of see me and thought, well, we should get over there. Mosley's getting too much alone time with Jerry. So about 5 good minutes with Jerry talking about what he thought should have happened on that punt block, what he would have liked to have seen there, and then what he thinks about Mike McCarthy moving forward. Here is my conversation with Jerry Jones. On the punt situation, it's just one of those things that you have to know in that thing to get away from that.
Yeah, and highly likely just seemed like we've had a rough go of it all year with fake punts, passing off a punt. In that particular case, those risks might look good on percentage of success according to how they align. But then when you look, if the consequences completely reverse on you like that, in our case, we give up possession in a 20-20 tied ball game, then you have to weigh, well, is there any risks at all that we might not have possession of the ball?
Yeah.
If there is, you go the surest way on the possession. I don't know that all of your percentages and your likelihoods and all of that can be figured in that kind of ratio, but it looked like you'll just have to look at the analytics, I guess. But my gut tells me that it would have been better odds for us to catch the punt and go down the field and get within field goal distance than it was to fumble the ball.
You think he was just he thought he could pick it up and run with it, or trying to make
I'm
a
not
play?
blaming the kid. I'm not blaming the guy.
Yeah.
Those plays.
You just
those plays that happen in action by you special teams players. That's what it is. It's a organized chaos out there on special teams, and you can have balls touched and tipped, and when you're running downfield and the ball's over your head, you can get it. It can jump into you. So all of that is you're supposed to. You do understand that happens to you when you call plays that fundamentally don't. That if that happens, you've made a bad call, or you've made one you wish you'd had back. I'm sure that there's low odds of the ball bouncing into one of our players after we touch the ball on a punt. There's low odds, but I don't know if those odds are more positive than if we'd have taken the kick and gotten the ball and got within field goal range and kicked the ball.
And you have a good punt returner.
So all of those kinds of things weigh into it. We've had some bad outcomes this year without being negative. We've just had some tough calls on in our kicking game, punting and passing, throwing passes off the punting game, things like that. And those things are dramatic. Any penalty or any usual hiccup in the kicking game is like a turnover. You give the ball up, and we gave the ball up with that turnover. So it's the most unforgiving part of a whole game is the kicking game, because the other team is giving up the ball and you're getting the ball. And if you try to run plays that doesn't end up giving you possession of the ball, that's a dramatic turn in the game. That's literally like turnovers.
Yeah.
But the kicking game is the most impactful part, because it usually reverses turnovers or creates turnovers.
Do you think that you're going to have a tough decision when it comes down to the season being over and who your next coach is, or if you stay with them?
I don't weigh those things as far as tough or the degree of making them. I always in my role make those decisions, and so they're all have a lot of gravity to them.
Now that you guys are
Any of those kinds of decisions regarding coaching staff, players, all of those things are, I don't want to call them tough, they're just very serious, impactful decisions.
now that you guys are 5-8 with the 4 games left, have you guys lost all margin for another loss? Do you feel like it's got to be without these last 4?
I don't know that. I haven't done the equations and really figured the odds at all. I was just knowing that where we've dug the hole to, we need to win the games, and we need to win every game that we can. And this was one we at home here that we looked like that we had held them down enough that we were going to come out of here with a chance to win the game. It's a shame it ended like that. It's depressing.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jerry.
Hey,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
That's right.
We have a Jerry.
Yeah,
Gaffe.
Jerry.
How
If you
about
want to
that?
see, you like a good full
These
screen,
guys are something.
a good full screen Jerry at all times. This is Rogue. It's what we do, Ed, and so appreciate Jerry and the time that he spent with us. And then, but Ed, I just this whole season, again, all the blowouts, all the weirdness we've seen at home, and then they have this opportunity, and again, where were they going with it? Were they going to run the table? It's highly unlikely. I do find it funny that so they've already been eliminated from, as you, and I think you had the note about the Eagles.
They've already eliminated the Cowboys.
The Cowboys,
assuring there'll be a 20th different NFC East champion. There hasn't been a repeat champion in 20 years.
It's crazy.
It's the longest streak in
and didn't the Eagles
sports.
have like 4 in a row at one
I think
point?
it was 3 in a row. Andy Reid's teams with Donovan McNabb was the quarterback.
Yeah, I remember that like almost like 2002, 2003, 2004, right in there, and with Donovan McNabb. And by the way, I know it'll shock you, Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb were taking shots at each other today. And then now the Eagles were taking shots. Brandon Graham, I guess, came out and said, yeah, AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts used to be great friends, but it's not really working out anymore. So he's had to try to walk that back. We've got all kinds of
So Kellen Moore's got his hands full in Philadelphia.
Yeah, they won. They won a game. And again, it was against a bad Carolina team, but AJ Brown just basically was like,
somebody asked him after the game, what do you need to improve at? He said, passing. They've won 9 games in a row.
I know. He's very upset. And then I saw a Philly person trying to explain it, like, this is why. And they're like, and it was actually on a play, I can't remember who they threw it to, that they scored a touchdown. And whoever was making the point said, AJ was open here. This is why AJ's mad. They scored a touchdown on the play. AJ was open. He should have thrown it to AJ.
You can't bitch when your team wins.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't complain when somebody else scores a touchdown because you thought you could have scored the touchdown.
Yeah. So, Ed, we got to get you. You got early morning activities for WFAA, so we want to get you out of here. But final thoughts, Ed, on on this performance. I would say again, Burrow ends up with huge numbers.
Yeah. But
they didn't have huge points until the very end. This was a 20-20 game.
Both teams actually hit their average.
And at a huge moment, they held Cincinnati to a field goal when they needed to, but Chase was just, he's basically unstoppable. He had 177 yards, and he had the big 40-yard. And at the end, when I think, Ed, as it happens sometimes, that play was so deflating. It was like, oh my gosh, the excitement of a blocked punt. We're going to have the ball in their territory. And then there's a huge mistake, and there's a change of possession that happened in a hurry, and they get the ball back, and it was just over. I mean, it was over in a hurry. And in fact, you wondered, okay, did they score too quickly? But with Cooper Rush, and Cooper, by the way, 16 of 31.
183 yards.
Not a great day for him, and throws a red zone interception.
Their 7th red zone turnover, most in the NFL, and Cooper Rush has 3 of those.
Yeah, and on that particular play, I was kind of laughing, and I'm not trying to blame this on.
Force it to CeeDee Lamb.
I'm not trying to blame it on CD because CD did get. I mean, it almost looked like a perfect pick play because Ferguson's man gets picked, and Ferguson's wide open, and he tries to force it to CD. And the ball's picked off. But, I mean, think about that.
It deflected directly off a Cincinnati player to another
Cincinnati player. But, like, how many of these interceptions this year are trying to force the ball to CeeDee Lamb?
6 interceptions have been Cowboys quarterbacks trying to get the ball to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb was the intended receiver on 6 of their interceptions, which, is half their total?
Yeah. This was a man who was basically chiding Dak earlier in the season, throw a jump ball, right? Throw it up there to me. And obviously they're trying to force the ball to him.
But yeah, if you look at the quarterbacks the Cowboys, beat in the 5 games they won, it's like Justin Fields and Deshaun Watson and Drew Lock and Daniel Jones and Jaden Daniels. I mean, it would have been something for them to beat Joe Burrow. Even Joe Burrow with a 4-8 Bengals team, but an electric offense. It's a Super Bowl worthy offense, and he's an MVP caliber player in terms of what he's doing. If his team was winning, but their defense is so bad, but their defense is perfectly adequate against a Cowboys team that has a backup quarterback and really only one receiver. And Rico Dowdle had a good game.
Really good.
I think McCarthy knew that, like we said, they had to play. He had to call the plays a certain way. He had to create a certain game. And they did all that. He wishes, I know, because he said so afterward, that he wishes he had run the ball even more with Dowdle, which is what he says every week. And like you said, he acts like he's He's not complicit in this. Like, he has no role in determining how many carries Dowdle gets, and he always says it's not enough.
Yeah.
But Dowdle had back-to-back 100-yard games. They went 26 games without a 100-yard rusher, franchise record. He gave them what they needed in that regard tonight. You know, the turnover by Cooper Rush cost him a potential touchdown, and the botch play, the debacle on special teams at the end of the game in the final 2 minutes.
It took them 10 weeks. It took them 10 weeks to figure out that they had one of the best backs in the NFL, in Rico Dowdle.
I don't know if he's really all that, but he was better than the other options they had, and they didn't know that for a long time.
I guess.
Or somebody else was telling the coaches they had to play somebody else.
One thing I don't understand about Troy, and Troy's been on with us, we love Troy, but Troy made a statement that said something like, the reason you bring back Mike McCarthy, I didn't really complete this earlier, is because this team's not far off. Like, we haven't seen like anything this year that would make you go, not far off. Like, there's no, I mean, even when they had, and I know the defense was very compromised, or, you know, throughout much of this season. I get that. But this thought that, well, they're not far off, like, where's that proof? Is it just because they've won 12 games in the past and they think they could revert back to that if they have a full
we've heard guys
strength?
like Micah Parsons say this week he wants a chance to run it back with the same group, you know? That's effectively what Jerry decided to do after the horrible playoff loss, except he decided to subtract from that team and try to run it back, and subtract significantly as it turned out. But, I mean, yeah, the story of this season is going to be unmet expectations, and whether that leads to a coaching change is yet to be determined. You know, the thing we don't know is what is the feedback Jerry's getting from coaches he's interested in. Are those people interested in coming here? Are they interested in taking this job should it become available, and at what price? Right? That's what we don't know. Is that why Jerry is all of a sudden talking up the possibility of bringing back McCarthy? Because he can't get somebody better? He thought he would be able to at one point, and now he's not so sure that can happen at a price he considers fair and reasonable? I don't know. But they have had, I mean, look at the guys who have been out multiple weeks, and in some cases, multiple weeks doesn't describe it. I mean, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dak Prescott, Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs, Zach Martin now. I mean, it's a ridiculous number of starting players that they've lost for long periods of time.
Correct.
And often at the same time. So I think that's fair to think about that when you're evaluating McCarthy. My problem is you said 12-5 wasn't good enough, and it wasn't good enough because you didn't win in the postseason. But now it's good enough when you don't even get to the postseason? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't bring back McCarthy. I think, like I said, in some regards, McCarthy's done as good a job as could possibly be done. But other times you look at what happened tonight and you go like, this is not a well-coached team. Like, coaching is not making this team better.
Yeah. Yeah, and he doesn't really have control of his special teams coach. We found that throughout the year. And Jerry was not, I mean, that's an interesting thing to me, that how upset Jerry was with
the coaches.
Yeah, and just how they ended up. Again, he was not holding against Arroyo like I think you could, because it was a boneheaded play. I mean, I feel for the kid, but still it was bad. But Jerry was like, I'm not blaming him. He blamed them not letting the guy kick and get the ball back and have a more conservative approach, which was, let's get possession of the ball and let's go try to win the game. And again, we don't know if they would have or not, but they would have had a better, it would have. And again, who knew that the guy was going to pull
let's be honest. Cooper Rush didn't complete a pass in the fourth quarter until there was a minute to go in the game, until the possession that began after the Bengals go-ahead touchdown and the debacle on special teams.
Yeah.
He had not completed a pass in the fourth quarter.
I did think there was a play-calling blunder in this game. There was like a first down play. This is in the fourth quarter, I think. And Dowdle rips like a 15-yard run. I mean, he's on a roll. And they followed that up with like 3 straight incompletions, I think. And didn't get anywhere. And it's just like, you're running the ball. I mean, we've seen this time and time again, and
they came in wanting to establish a running game.
yeah,
and create the right circumstances.
And then when the game was on the line, he goes, "Hey, the guy who threw an interception and hasn't been accurate.
He's my backup quarterback. He's modestly talented. Let's have him throw 30 times today." Coming into the game, the Cowboys, unbelievably to me, had attempted the most passes in the entire NFL. Even though they played Cooper Rush for half the season, they had attempted the most passes in the NFL. Well, there was one game he threw 55 passes.
Yeah.
And he dropped back 5 more times and got sacked. So that was 60 passing attempts. Anyway.
And they're all taking passes away from Trey Lance.
And I wouldn't by any means assume on a short week after this loss and losing DeMarvion Overshawn that they are going to go into Carolina and win, because in fact, I think Carolina is favored for the first time in like 2 years over the Cowboys. And they took the Chiefs to the wire, and they took Philadelphia to the wire yesterday. Yeah. So I wouldn't shock me if we're not back in a week talking about another Cowboys loss, which is what many fans want at this point.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we'll talk about it either way.
Let's do.
Win or lose. All right, Ed, appreciate you. Have a great morning tomorrow on WFAA.
Don't even talk about it.
Boy, you and that guy, It's Took. Boy, I like
Mark
him.
Istook. He's good. He's very good.
Oh yeah,
I like him a lot.
You all have. I mean, you don't have our chemistry.
No,
but he's a nice guy, and he just seems like a guy that stays in shape. That's something I aspire to do. I'd like to get a hold of some of that Ozempic, just shoot myself up with it over and over. All right, it is the. Are we
sponsored by Ozempic?
No, we're sponsored by Marable Homes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, and. It is now. We'll end the show with this today, because it is now time to bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, there he is, Glenn Stretch Smith, and of course he had all kinds of Monday Night Football duties, Channel 8. All the things they do to get you ready for Monday Night Football, WFAA, the ABC affiliate in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He'll also be on around noon tomorrow for a broadcast that they do. And Stretch, good to have you. Cowboys find another way to lose at home. I mean, fall to like 1-6 at home. They're now they fall 27-20. Let's start with you're always good at talking about special teams. Of course, that brought back memories immediately of Leon Lett. You remember that well on Thanksgiving Day, 1993. Stretch, I mean, I think Jerry, when I talked to him after the game, was more, he wasn't really upset at the kid as much as like he didn't want the punt. He didn't even want to try to block a punt there. He's like, let's just get the ball back and try to go win. But obviously, Vigil got through, blocked the punt, and then Aurier made the huge mistake of touching it, and the rest is history. What did you make of it? And again, I guess it just becomes another in the list of Cowboys blunders over the years.
Well, I mean, before that ever happened, I guess, Matt, my thing is I don't think you could have asked for the game to be set up any better than it was set up at that time of the game. I thought Mike Zimmer did a hell of a job calling the game. I thought you saw a defensive back group who finally kind of got the band back together with, with Diggs, with Bland, with, Lewis playing in the slot. You had Hooker, you had Wilson, you had what you wanted, and you had a defense that really played about as good against a really, really good quarterback, a really good group of receivers, and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Mike Gesicki. And, I mean, they did everything that I thought a defense could do. I'm just, I try to look at my notes and go back through and think, man, it was really, really a well put together game plan. They chased the ball hard. Yeah, Is Burrow going to make some great throws? Absolutely. Is Jamar Chase going to win on some routes? Sure he is. Is T. Higgins? Yeah. But at the end of the day, you had everything go your way in that scenario. Offensively, you had a team that was playing in the second half. They had to bring Bass in. They had to move Hoffman inside the center. You had a Doga at left tackle. You had a back that rushed for 131 yards, better than 7 yards a carry with this offensive line. I don't care how bad you say Cincinnati's defense is. At the end of the day, you have an offensive line that's getting better, playing together. You had a tight end group that finally, with Shoemaker and Ferguson, could line up in some 12 personnel. You had a direct snap to Turpin. You had so much go your way and really play pretty well into the football game. I mean, I'm just – again, I try to chart a game, with pluses and minuses and how I think guys are doing it, and it's filled with pluses. My minuses are, I wish they hadn't gone 3 and out in those situations right there when they tried to boot Rush into his hand in the second half, and he threw the ball in the dirt. And even Aikman said it. He didn't know why he was hurried right there. He threw 3 poor balls in a row. But at the end of the day, the quarterback managed the football game well enough for you to go win. You had things go your way, and all you had to do, Matt, is catch the punt, make 2 first downs, and send Aubrey out there for a 60-yard field goal. Cincinnati was trying to lose the football game the way they've lost a ton of football games this year. If the ball's blocked and a punt and goes past the line of scrimmage, everybody is screaming, Peter, get away from the football. And I get it. He thought it took a candy hop right to him, but the ball's it's forward bouncing. It's not bouncing in reverse like it would be on a kickoff. And to see him mishandle that football, and you can say, well, was that one play what lost the game? We could go and point to a couple of other things, but the margin for winning and losing in National Football League is razor thin. And you played as good as you could play offensively with a backup quarterback, with backup defensive linemen, with a started Wingo, and you saw him bust a couple of times early. They got him out of there. Cooks got back in the game, catches a touchdown. They had some couple well-designed red zone throws that got touchdowns. You got what you wanted out of your defense, and you couldn't figure out a way to win, just win the football game. It's a maddening scenario, Matt. It really is. I don't know that I've witnessed anything like this where I'm sure Bones Fossil has gone over 1 million times what that rule is. They have 45-minute to 50-minute a day special teams meetings. You have to be going over the rules, what to do, what not to do in those scenarios. And the fact that he tried to field that it just makes you throw your hands up in the air and say, what the hell are we doing? And it is a maddening situation. So I'm sorry I'm rambling, but at the end of the day, that cost you the football game and may have cost you a season.
And, I think it's worth pointing out, Stretch, that Aurorier had been out and he just got activated to the roster, the active roster today. And so, again, not that he hasn't been in meetings and that kind of thing, but you just don't know. I mean, you'd like to think everybody's coached, everybody understands the rules, but everybody out there was making the sign or saying kind of like what you were saying. They were basically saying, get away from that ball. And for him to touch that ball right there, it brings back horrible memories for Cowboys fans of the whole Leon Lett situation. And again, you're right. I mean, again, I don't know what they were going to do if they got it to 6-7, but again, they still were alive. Now, even McCarthy kind of admitted this was it. This was kind of the season, and now who knows what they're playing for? Are they playing for McCarthy's job? Are they playing for a draft position? Are they going to play and try to get Trey Lance in there? Stretch, you talked about, Cooper Rush made a couple of really nice plays in the red zone. That one play where Cowboys now have 7 red zone turnovers. It's been a horrible issue all year. Cooper Rush has 3 of them. On that specific play, he's trying to fit the ball to CD. CD gets caught, and honestly, it probably ended up being a pretty nice pick play because I think Ferguson had come open in the end zone. Can you walk me through kind of what you saw on that play? And again, a lot of these interceptions this year seem to be the Cowboys, whether it be Dak or Cooper, trying to force the ball to CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, so what it is it's a tight end running a slant. And then Ferguson, I don't, when you're an offensive coach, it's not that you call it a pick. You want to call it more of a rub. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to mesh it and rub some guys off. So when CD goes to run the slant, he knows Ferguson's coming right behind him to run the wheel up the boundary. Well, CD feels that he's going to run into a pick. So when you do that, that's fixing to happen as a player, you kind of tend to pull off so that you don't get that called, so that it's not an easy call for the official, because it really is. You're splitting hairs when you talk about meshing guys, especially in the red zone in a very tight area. So when he kind of pulled off, he tries to stick it in there with a slant, and it's a pick. And I'm saying it's a pick as in an interception. And so it was not the best of what I would say scenarios where you got to stick the ball in there. I would hope that it would have been gone over during the week when you go over your red zone stuff on what would be Saturday or normally Friday on a Sunday game, that you're talking about. We're going to show this play. Hey, we like this play. We're going to try to run this play. You give it in practice, then you go and watch it on film that Friday, and you try to go over, okay, if you see this, let's make sure we do that. If you get in a situation where you're here, let's make sure that you're doing what you need to do here. It was a really unfortunate thing. I thought Cooper Rush does as good as he can do with the tools that he has. He's a very limited skill set guy who's obviously very smart and understands the game, and he's a dink and dunk. In baseball terms, he's a Texas League hitter. That's about what he is, and but in the red zone right there, he tries to stick the ball in there. They all know what the red zone statistics are. They all know that they're 30th or whatever it is rated in the league from a red zone standpoint. And so, hey, he's trying to make a play in that situation, and Lamb pulls off because he doesn't want to get the call, and it was just a bad setup all the way around. But I think I know where you're going to is, hey, there's a play. You had a play defensively that you could have pointed to and said, well, this was a play that cost him the game. Or it's just, again, it's razor thin for winning and losing in the National Football League. And Cooper Rush can't try to stick that ball in there. He can't do it. He can't push the ball, especially in the red zone into tight areas. He's not that kind of thrower.
All right, Stretch, I appreciate it. And I want to remind you, MarableHomes.com. Marable Homes sponsors the Doomsday Podcast, among other sponsors. And I'm telling you, Stretch, they're Preston Hollow, they're Highland Park, they're Lake Highlands. It's luxury custom homes. And I guarantee you, the next foray for them has to be Aledo, Texas, where you reside. And gorgeous homes being built out there. Would love to see the Marables head out there and build some homes out in Parker County, places like where you and Randy Galloway and others live out there. I think it'd be a beautiful fit. So thanks to Marable Homes, they're doing some gorgeous things, and their decorations are great. Stretch, have you put out some Christmas decorations? Is your house all lit up? Do you have kind of a Griswold situation or not?
It has been since the 18th of the month, 18th of last month. I got a train running in there right now. We got 2 Christmas trees. Yeah, absolutely. It's as decorated up as it could be. I'm a big Christmas guy, and it's very festive and very Christmassy here in Aledo, Texas right now.
Is it worth me taking a trip out there just to put eyes on that?
Oh, or you could FaceTime me, and I could hit the horn on the choo-choo. I could hit it for you a couple of times if you can't get out here. I know how tight your schedule is, but yeah, I could FaceTime you and give you a full look of it, because we've got the big tree in the front room, we got the smaller one in the back. I said we got the train set up, we got the stockings out. It's full-fledged, full contact Christmas out here right now.
All right, I think our Doomsday audience would love to see that. Shout out to Colby Smith, your son. Tough ending for the Aledo Bearcats, but what an incredible program they are. And he's had a really unique and tremendous high school career, and I'll be excited to see where he decides to play his college ball. So big shout out to Colby, who's a big fan of the Doomsday podcast. And so shout out to him for another really good season. And the Bearcats will be back next year better than ever, but excited to see where Colby ends up going. Stretch, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you.
Hey, have a blessed night. See you guys.
For Stretch and Ed, I am Matt Mosley. That has been the Doomsday Podcast. Good night from AT&T Stadium.
We are Rogue Media Sports.